I guess 1 to 3. All right, ladies and gentlemen, just checking if I am live or not. Not like right now. I can see myself live. I think I'm live right now. See. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't know how many people of you are going to join this live stream. So basically, let me give a quick introduction of the book that I'm going to read. I'm going to be reading Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. I, I was reading the book. I thought a lot of people, basically कई लोग जो कि इंग्लिश बुक नहीं पढ़ पाते हैं, they basically हिंदी बुक में फोकस करते हैं. अगर कोई ऐसा पर्सन होगा जो कि इंग्लिश बुक्स नहीं पढ़ पाता है, क्योंकि मेरा सेपरेट चैनल है, तो वहाँ पे मुझे कई ऐसे रिक्वेस्ट आते हैं जहाँ पे वो बोलते हैं हिंदी में कोई बुक दीजिए. बट इंग्लिश बुक्स, क्योंकि ऑथर ज़्यादा होते हैं, तो काफ़ी प्रोमिनेंट होती है, काफ़ी अच्छी होती है. तो अगर आपको इसकी ट्रांसलेशन या कोई भी मीनिंग नहीं समझ में आएगा, देन टू आई विल एक्सप्लेन इट. नाउ आई एम गोइंग टू रीड इट. Strategies for developing a high sense of purpose. Now, this book is called Laws of Human Nature. And in this book, what we are doing is we are trying to decipher the laws of the human nature. For this book read, since I am doing it all alone and I do not know if anybody is going to join it, I will be predominantly using the English language. Currently, I'm at 440 page. It is total 719 page book. I have read the previous pages, so I'm going to start from here. But no worries, you can always catch up this book anytime. Now, if we are going to talk about strategies for developing a high sense of purpose, once you commit yourself to developing or strengthening your sense of purpose, then the hard work begins. You will face many enemies and obstacles impeding your progress, the distracting voices of the other who will instill doubt about your calling and your uniqueness, your own boredom and frustration with the work itself, and your slow progress, the of trustworthy criticism from the people to help you, the level of anxiety you must manage, and finally, the burnout that often accompanies focused labor over a long period. The following five strategies are designed to help you move past these obstacles. They are in loose order. The first being the essential starting point. You will want to put them all in practice to ensure the continual movement forward. So, till now, in this paragraph, basically, here the author is going to tell us the five steps in which you can develop a high sense of purpose. Just to explain, we as a human, especially in today's life, we feel lost. We don't have a sense of purpose. Yes, we do have our jobs, we do have our career, but that is not equivalent to the purpose of life. A lot of time we are trying to find what is our calling in life. Very few people in the world are able to find that calling. Most of people are just streaming throughout the life like a NPC in a video game without knowing what the purpose of their life is. And to those who find their sense of purpose are the one who achieve greatness. So let us go on a journey in this book. If we can find something, some ways, the five strategies told by the author, that we can get a high sense of purpose in life. The first is discover your calling in life. You begin this strategy by looking for signs of primal inclination in your earliest year, when they were often the clearest. Some people can easily remember such early indications, but for many of us, it requires some instro- introspection and some digging. What you are looking for is a moment in which you were unusually fascinated by a particular subject or a certain object or a specific activities and form of play. The great 19th and 20th century scientist Marie Curie could distinctly recall the moment when she was 4 year old and entered her father's office, suddenly mesmerized by the sight of all sort of tubes and measuring devices for various chemistry experiments placed behind a polished glass case. Her whole life she would feel a similar visceral thrill whenever she entered a laboratory. For Anton Chekhov, it was attending his first play in the theater as a boy in a small town. The whole atmosphere of a make believe thrilled him. For Steve Jobs, it was passing an electronics store as a child and seeing the wondrous gadgets in the window, marveling at their design and the complexity. For Tiger Woods, I hope it's not women. It was at the age of 2, of watching his father hit a golf ball into the net in the garage and being unable to contain his excitement and desire to imitate him. For the writer Jean Paul, a starter, it was a childhood fascination with a printed word on the page and the possible magical meaning of each word possessed. So basically, here the author is trying to tell you the first ways to look at your childhood. When we are the child, we are quite innocent. We have our own inclinations, the things that attract us. I remember when I was a child, I was fascinated by subject of physics. I was fascinated by whenever I used to study physics. At that time, I remember it was called science, not physics. The chemistry and biology was into it, but I was never into the biology, but I was very, very attracted by the physics as well as chemistry at that time. And as I grow up, my inclination towards the physics just increased. Though I do not work in that area, but I can relate to this example. And I believe a lot of us may be able to believe with it or may be able to really connect what the author is saying here. This moment of visceral attraction occurred suddenly and without any prodding from the parents or the friends, it would be hard to put into words why they occurred. They're the signs of something beyond our personal control. The actress Ingrid Bergman expressed it best when talking of the fascination she had with the performing in front of a father movie camera at a very early age. I didn't choose acting, it chose me. Sometimes this moment can come when we are older, and with the Martin Luther King Jr. realized his mission in life as he got pulled into the Montgomery bus boycott. And sometimes they can occur while observing other people who are the masters in their field. I believe this happened with all of us. As a young man, the future of Japanese film director Akira Kurosawa felt particularly aimless. He tried painting, then apprenti- apprenticed as an assistant director on job films, a job he hated. He was ready to quit when he got assigned to work for a director, Kajiro Yamamoto, in 1936. Watching this great master at once suddenly his eyes were open to the magical possibility of film, and he realized his calling. As he later described this, it was like a wind in the mountain or past blowing across my face. By this I mean that wonderfully refreshing wind you will feel after a painfully hard climb. The breath of that wind tell you you are reaching the pass. That's such a beautiful example given here. I think this is a kind of a true word, as these are in double inverted commas. These are said by some person, and I can truly relate to what he is saying here because I do sometimes edit video and to a 1 by 1,000th part, I can really kind of feel connected what the author is saying here. Then you stand in the past and look down over the panorama as it opens up. When I stood behind Yamasan in his director's chair next to the camera, I felt my heart swell with the same feeling I have made it at last. As another sign, examine moments in your life when your certain task or activity felt natural and easy to you, similar to swimming with the current. And performing such activity, you have a great tolerance for the tedium of practicing. People criticisms don't discourage you so easily. You want to learn. You can contrast this with other subject or a task that you find deeply boring or unfulfilling. Maybe this book reading might be the one thing which frustrate you. Related to this, you will want to figure out the particular form of intelligence that your brain is wired for. In his book, Frames of Mind, the psychologist Howard Gardner lists certain form of intelligence for which the people usually have one particular gift or affinity. This could be mathematics and logic, physical activity, word, image, or music. We could also add to this social intelligence a superior sensitivity to people. When you are engaged in the activity that feels right, it will correspond to that form of intelligence for which your brain is most suited. From these various factors, you should be able to spot the outlines of your calling. In essence, in going through this process, you are discovering yourself, what makes you different, what predates the opinion of other. You are reacquainting yourself with the natural likes and dislikes. Later in life, when often lose contact with our own preferences from one thing, deeply influenced by what others are doing and by the culture, you are subtracting such external influences. The deeper you make this connection to your calling, the more you will feel you will able to resist the bad ideas of other. You will engage that internal guidance system. Put some time in the process, working with a journal if necessary. You are developing the habit of assessing and listening to yourself so that you can continually monitor your progress and adjust this calling to the various stages in your life. Beautiful advice here. If anybody is going to listen it ever in your life, this has to be your takeaway right here, right now. If you're young and starting out in your career, you want to explore a relatively wide field related to your inclination. For instance, if you have affinity in your word and writing, try all different types of writing until you hit upon the right one. If you're older, you have more experience, you want to take that skill you already have developed and find a way to adapt them more in the direction of your true calling. So it seems like just I just got distracted by my mobile phone. And that's the curse of the modern life. If you are young and you are just starting out your career, I think we all have read this. Remember that your calling could be combining several fields that fascinate you. For jobs, it was intersection of technology and the design. Keep the process open-minded. You will experience will instruct you to the way. Do not try to bypass the work of discovering your calling or imagine that it will simply come to you naturally, although it may come to a few people early in a life or in a lightning bolt moment. For most of us, it requires continual introspection and effort. Experimenting with a skill and option related to your personality and inclination is not only the single most essential step in developing a high sense of purpose, it is perhaps the most important step in a life in general. Knowing that in a deep way you are your uniqueness, you will make it much easier to avoid all the other pitfall of the human nature. Use resistance and negative spurs. The key to success in any field is developing a skill in the various areas, which you can later combine in a unique and creative ways. But the process of doing can be tedious and painful. As you become aware of your limitation and relative lack of a skill, most people consciously or unconsciously seek to avoid tedium, pain, or any form of adversity. They try to put themselves in the places where they will face less criticism and minimize their chances of the failure. You must choose to move in opposite direction. You want to embrace negative experiences, limitation, and even pain as a perfect mean of building up your skill level and sharpening your sense of purpose. When it comes to exercise, you understand the importance of the manageable level of the pain and discomfort because they later yield strength, stamina, and the positive sensation. The same will occur to you by actually embracing the tedium in your patience. Frustration is a sign that you are making progress as your mind becomes aware of the higher level of the skill that you have yet to attain. I'll underline this. I was going through this from the past 2 days in my personal life, and this is so much true, man. In life, we all feel frustrated. There are the times that we feel like we don't have a direction how to find the solution to a particular problem. What was happening to me, I was asking myself that why is it happening to me? Why not anybody else? Why they are getting all this kind of success? Why not me? And the answer is that we are all on a different path. We are all on a different journey. And the frustration that we are actually feeling in the work is actually a part of the progress. The frustration is like a middle step of leveling up. Suppose you want to go from a level 1 to a level 2. There is an element of frustration and anxiety that has to be endured in order to level up in life. With that, let me. I have zero idea anybody will be listening to. Book reading is not uh, not quite famous or popular, but it's fine. I'm particularly fine. I have no problem. Even if nobody is listening it, it's just great. You know, I've started reading book because from some time I was actually not able to find time to read book for my own self, and as I'm not able to find time for my own self, I don't want to be that kind of person that do not read book because reading book in life is so important. These are your immortal friends. This will be with us forever in life. You want to use and embrace any kind of deadline. If you give yourself a year to finish a project or start a business, it will generally take a year or more. If you give yourself 3 months, you will finish it much sooner. I think somebody said it. Oh, it's my favorite fighter, one of the favorite fighter of the UFC, Habib Nurmagomedov actually said these lines. You want to use and embrace any kind of deadline. If you give yourself a year to finish a project or start a business, you will generally take a year or more. If you give yourself 3 months, you will finish it that much sooner. The concentrated energy with which you work will raise your skill level and make the end result that much better. If necessary, manufacture reasonably tight deadlines to intensify your sense of purpose. Thomas Edison knew he could take far too long to realize his invention, and so he developed the habit of talking about their future greatness to journalists, overselling his idea. With publicity, he would now be put in the position of having to make it happen, and relatively soon, or be ridiculed. He would now have to rise to the occasion, and he almost always did. The great 18th century Zen master Hakuin took this further. He became greatly frustrated by the particular cons, I don't know what that means, paradoxical anecdotes designed to spark enlightenment. Very nice. Presented to him by his master. His lack of progress made him feel desperate, so he told himself, in all seriousness, if I fail to master one of these cons in 7 days, I will kill myself. Quite interesting. This worked for him and kept on working for him until he attained a total enlightenment. As you progress on your path, you will be subject to more and more people's criticism. Some of them might be constructive and worth paying attention to, but many of them come from envy. You can recognize that later by the person's emotional tone in expressing their negative opinion. They do go a little too far, speak a bit too much, vehemence. They make it personal, instilling doubts about your overall ability, emphasizing your personality more than the work. They lack a specific detail about what and how to improve. Hmm. Once recognized, the trick is to internalize this criticism in any form. Becoming defensive is a sign they have got into you. Instead, use their negative opinion to motivate you and add to your sense of purpose. It reminds me of Floyd Mayweather and what he does. Absorb purposeful energy. We humans are extremely susceptible to the moods and the energy of the other people. For this reason, you want to avoid too much contact with those who have a low or false sense of purpose. Okay. On the other hand, you always want to try to find and associate with those who have a high sense of purpose. This could be a perfect mentor, a teacher, a partner, or a project. Such people will tend to bring out the best in you, and you will find it easier and even refreshing to receive their criticism. This was a strategy that brought Coco Chanel. Coco, it's not Chanel, I think it's Chanel. I think so. That's how it pronounced. So much power. She began life from a position of the great weakness. As an orphan, with a little or no resources in life, she realized in her early 20s that her calling was to design clothes and to start her own apparel line. Really, man. Wow. She desperately needed guidance, particularly when it come to the business side. She looked for a people who could help her to find her way. At the age of 25, she met with the perfect target, a wealthy older English businessman named Arthur Boy Capel. She was attracted to his ambition, his well rounded experience, his knowledge of the arts, and his ruthless practicality. She latched onto him with a great vehemence. He was able to instill in her the confidence that she could become a famous designer. She taught her about the business in general. She offered her tough, he offered her tough criticism that she could accept because of her deep respect for him. He helped guide her in her first important decision in setting up her business. From him, she developed a very honed sense of purpose that she retained her entire life. Without his influence, her path would have been too confusing and difficult. Later in life, she kept returning to this strategy. She found other men and women who had the skills she lacked or needed to strengthen social graciousness, marketing, a nose for a cultural trend, and develop relationship that allowed her to learn from them. I think, I think this is a level that I will read, and now I shall go. I'll be doing it whenever I feel like.